Okay, it says this meeting is being recorded. Okay.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Cycle Jerks Podcast. This is episode 155. Yeah, we got Dave Dalton riding shotgun. How's it going, Dave?
Great. Two couple things. I'm stoked that you keep track because every time we get on, I go, what number are we at? That's 150. That's amazing, that number.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
super stoked about our guest too, because I'm gonna just put it out there. I don't know shit about BMX racing, so generally I'm generally anxious and happy to learn. I've been wanting to have someone from the BMX world on for a while. So this is, I would submit that a lot of our listeners don't know either. So this is great. It's great
yeah.
stuff.
I think it's going to be a good learning experience for everybody. But I think the
No pressure, Mark.
amazing thing
That's
about
all
the number is that we're still talking to each other after so many of these damn things. But anyway,
It's really
okay.
good though,
So
because I get to go downstairs and vent to Sue. She's got to listen, and she will say, "How come you guys are still friends?" But good.
yeah, nice. All right. Well, today, as Dave alluded to, we've got former BMX pro Mark Jackson. He's very involved with the Bay Area BMX movement and also works as a coach in some summer camps. And Mark and I've known each other a long time. And good to see your smiling face again, dude.
Yeah, you too, man. Pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
How's life? What are you doing these days?
Working for a clothing company right now. Cookies brand.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, the clothing side, not the other side. Uh,
Uh-huh.
still racing amateur and in the 46 to 50 expert class. Basically all the same guys I used to race back in my 20s as a pro, and yeah, it's pretty damn competitive.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes that vet class could get pretty serious. I know like in just regular cycling, let's say old guys like Dave and I, sometimes they call them masters. They
Yeah,
got all these former world champs in there and stuff, So
yeah. It's
yeah,
the only difference is we don't race for money anymore. So it's the same race, just there's no money on the line.
got it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mike's right in the race world. Number one, there's just people that've been doing it for so long, and B, we don't have anything else to do. This is what we love to do, so we race. It's not like we have to get kids to soccer games. It's not like, that those days are gone. So
Yeah.
Right.
that's why it gets so freaking competitive. And as Mike said, people that used to be pro are now in these fields and world champions and national champions and like holy shit. So yeah.
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 Yeah, I always like checking out the vet pro class when I'm checking out BMX because it's like, oh shit, sometimes you see some names that I recognize even from back in my day. They're still
Yeah.
out there getting after it. So
Oh,
that's pretty dope.
yeah. The legends are still out there. They're in the there's some a lot of them are competing in the amateur class with me, and then there's the vet pro, which is right beneath the elite pro, if you will. And those guys are like about in their 30s, like
Okay.
the most. And then because once you as a male, your things start tapering off and you're not as quick. And then 30 seems young when you're like 35. So
Yeah. Tell me about it. Dave and I are north of 55. Let's just say that.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
as we get older, everything takes longer.
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
So true.
Yeah. 48, I'm kind of starting to see a little bit of that. I'm just all like, wow, things are kind of slowing down a little bit here.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you still have your eyesight, it looks like. Can you see okay? You need glasses?
My at nighttime is questionable.
Okay. Yeah.
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 Nighttime. Cool. I try to avoid driving at night as much as possible. But I mean, if I have to do it, I do it. But I'm not like not blind as a bat, but I'm all like, damn, I can turn the high beams on to see the sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Well, okay. So as an amateur now, how many BMX races are you hitting a year?
Um, well, this year kind of slowed down. Believe it or not, I had an injury that I'm still on the. Well, I finally recovered from, but it's kind of set me back in April. I was racing up in Oregon, and I had my first like major crash in all the years I've done this sport, and I've been doing this sport since like 1990, and I've
Wow.
avoided bones. I've been scraped up and bruised and whatnot, but this is the first time I broke a bone. I broke a my sixth rib and collapsed a lung. So I had a gnarly one, and I had plans to hit about 7 nationals and maybe 10 state races, and all that got kind of washed away. So I was like, oh, time to hit the reset button and just plan for next year. But on a normal, I'd hit about 7 state races, which are local around here, once for a Saturday, and then for once a month or so, and you probably get about 4 to 5 races in on the West Coast. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And are these all ABA?
Yeah, because it's all one sanction now. The NBL is gone. Yeah,
Right.
they merged into one sanction. It's called the USA BMX now, which is
Okay.
pretty much the same thing as saying American Bicycle Association, United States. Yeah,
All
so
right. Yeah.
they just took over. So
You know,
there's more races now, but the West Coast doesn't get favored as much as it used to, which is weird.
oh, yeah, because
Yeah.
there were always a lot of nationals on the West Coast when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's how it always been. ABA ruled a lot of the West Coast, and they trickled a little bit in the East Coast. And then the NBL did most of the East Coast and trickled a little bit in the West Coast. Now, since the merger happened, some years it seems like a lot of West Coast, and then this year seems a lot of East Coast.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
boy, that's challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right, I already have a million questions.
all right, what's that?
I already have a million questions.
All right,
Yeah.
let it rip.
All right. Well, the first is, let's just, before we get too far down the path, you're sorry about your injury, but how do you go that long without a serious injury? It seems like I can't go 3, 4 rides without a serious injury. So
That's true. That's true, by the way. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know, man. I've been very fortunate. Just very fortunate. Just there's been some close calls, but yeah, I just got lucky. It's just I know the faster you go, the more stuff tends to happen when you're on the edge. And
Yeah.
time the edge caught up with me, I just, I didn't win all the time, but I was going pretty damn fast. And I was like, maybe if I'd have gone that much faster, who knows? But
I don't want to be too morbid, but is it a common thing? Like I'm watching the tour again today, and every race there's a couple of crashes, right? And invariably on any Saturday, if there's a road race, there's a crash, right? So is it
yeah.
common, or is it just
Oh, yeah.
you just
Yeah, it's common, especially like I said, the faster you go, it's just you're always just tiddling with the edge. And some people look like I tell people, when you come to see me race at a big event, I'm all, don't watch the 17-year-olds and then expect to see me go that fast in my race. I'm all, the difference between them and me, their speed is just completely different. But I tell people for my age, this is about as fast as you can go on a BMX bike around the track. I'm being top percentile. So every once in a while, yeah, we get it wrong because our reflexes aren't as lightning quick as they used to be.
Man.
Even mine, we're like, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and then next thing you know, bloop.
yeah.
So
Yeah, you're speaking my language right now, man. Because
yeah.
So the last couple of years, I haven't even been riding a mountain bike because I raced downhill and did some dual slalom stuff and all this aggressive gravity, adrenaline stuff. And man, I don't see as well. I don't hear as well. My hand-eye is out the window. And it's all of a sudden, I remember I used to crash and I knew exactly what happened. It was almost I don't know what you call it, but just total recall memory of exactly what happened. Oh, my tire just pushed right off the top of that berm, and that's what did me, right?
Little detail.
Yeah, but now, I mean, the last one was on Father's Day with my son, and we were going down some crazy downhill trail, and I don't even know what happened. I just went down. I'm just riding along, and then all of a sudden, I was sketchy, and I'm flying, and all of a sudden, it's just bam, I'm down.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
Mark nailed it. I don't care what you say. Your reflexes just aren't as good, and whether it be because you're going to avoid something or whether it's going to be trying to recover from whatever happened
yeah,
to try to stay upright. It's just we're just not as fast.
Yeah,
So
yeah. They got age classes for a reason.
hmm
I'm extremely grateful they do, because when I back in 2003, I quit the sport I was gone for like 5 years, and that was back when I was racing pro. I stopped. I was done. I was like, I'm going to live regular life. And then of course I got the itch to ride again. And lo and behold, I was like, oh, and the Olympics are happening and BMX is in it. I was like, oh,
Right.
this is great. And that's about the time. That's right when I started working at Hank and Frank. So, but then I
Yeah.
noticed, oh, they got an age group. I was like, I don't have to race the younger kids. They got an age group for me. And then I walked in there, and it's the same guys I'd left like 5 years ago. So nothing changed. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm still waiting for you. So
Right. Yeah,
Hey,
man.
I'm curious as to, we gotta, figure out, well, I want to learn when you got it, because you've been doing it for so long, when you got into it. But right now I'm intrigued by, again, this is just out of ignorance on my part. You say these local races, like where the hell do these things happen? Like, I don't know, like I wouldn't even know, like if I want to come see Mark Jackson race, I wouldn't know where to start, right? And
here's
then how do you travel so much as a, go ahead.
no, okay, no, go ahead. Sorry about that. I mean to cut you off.
No, then all that traveling, like to go in different states and to go out, man, it's got to be an incredible lifestyle. So tell me where these races happen.
Sure. So there's like a few local tracks around here. There's Manteca, Manzanita, which is out in Prunedale, and then there's Roseville and Napa. Originally, before that, there was a fifth track, was one of the original ones was Santa Clara Powell, and they were closed down a couple years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, right off
everyone.
of 237.
Yep. That so the track, believe it or not, is still there, and that's a track that my team manager Howard Cato runs, and we run it as a practice track. It's just not sanctioned, so
Okay.
everything goes on the same, just like as if you were training. So it's basically a training facility. We use it as, so it's like we still got the gate there, we still got the jumps. For a lot of us older guys, we come out there and we just basically run straightaways against each other, just do little drills. It's basically like having a sparring partner out there,
Hmm.
get you kind of prepped. I mean, it's a little bit of everything, but it still doesn't supplement racing. The only thing is supplement racing is racing. So
Yeah.
when I have to do like any kind of local event, just a regular local, I have to go to like Napa or Manteca. The state series, I think the next one for me, I should be ready by August, is going to be in Manteca. It's probably going to be a hot one out there, but used to that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
When my
so those are the tracks
it,
that we go to.
Interesting, Mike. I don't know if I've ever shared the backstory with you, but so the little that I know about BMX, my son used to race. He took it up because he was friends with this guy, Brian Beeman, who happens to be the cousins of the Beemans that run Dublin Cyclery.
Yeah.
And they were big into BMX. And so my son bought his BMX, and they used to race in Livermore in some like
Yeah.
field.
Yep.
Yeah, and then but that was kind of just a warm up, because anybody that was serious about it was just doing that until the weekend when they went to, I think, Manteca was the big place that they would go.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Livermore came around like I think in 90, 97, 98, and it was in like two spots. Once it was right by that fire station, and then they moved it to where it currently is now, where that baseball field is.
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
The it's really changed a lot over the years. I mean, it's funny to hear Manteca still on the schedule.
yep.
We raced Manteca way back in the 80s, you know. We always liked it because you get the water slide. It's always hot as hell, but the water slides are right there, so we would just
Yeah,
make a
that's
day
what
of it.
we're known for, the water slides. Yeah.
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 Yeah, whatever. Good times, right?
Yep.
So when the sport when they added BMX to the Olympics, as someone who grew up racing BMX, I mean that was a really surreal moment for me. I was super excited to see it. And can you speak to like how that may have changed the sport?
Oh wow, yeah. It started with, I want to say for sure, the tracks is where it like really began to get like crazy extreme. And
Yeah.
then obviously that crazy starting hill that we have. And those
Yeah.
are only found on Olympic style. They call those supercross tracks, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
The tracks got bigger. The tires, we went away from knobbies. because now we're using this soil tack on the dirt, which makes it react like asphalt. So
Okay.
going faster, but if you fall, oof, it's bad. But
Yeah.
faster now. The gate, it used to be riders ready, watch the light, and the gate would just fall on command as soon as you heard the word light. Now it's the random gate, which they got from mountain biking. I think
Oh,
before, right? Yeah. So they had to make it fair because everyone's doing this
What does
crazy.
that mean, random gate?
Yeah. You will, and it came from mountain biking. I think it's four cross. Yeah. So it'd say riders ready, watch the gate, and then it'd be like either a pause of either right away or 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or maybe longer. As soon as you heard the gate would fall. But it would never be the same like timed every time.
Not predictable.
What's that?
Not predictable. Just
Exactly.
it's
Yeah, that's the
okay.
only fair at the start, because before everybody just knew to go exactly when you heard the word light. Guys were getting so good at it, they would time it and they would slingshot the bike, roll it back to have that extra push, and go with the gate and have a big hole shot. But when like 7 guys do that and one guy doesn't, somebody flinches, suddenly it messes you up. So they got rid of that.
yeah.
So
I
yeah,
always thought it was strange that so the slingshot that Mark just described, that was illegal. And
yeah,
at least in my era, and I always thought it was kind of strange that it would be illegal because it's a hero or zero kind of thing. And you either nail it right or you don't. It is a skill that requires, like you got to time everything. There's a lot of skill involved in that movement to create an advantage. And
right.
yeah, I just never understood why that was against the rules. It seemed like, hey, you're just trying to get across that finish line faster than everybody else. So,
Uh-huh.
but yeah,
To like when I started racing in 1990, when I started, it was there, so it wasn't illegal yet. I think it was illegal in the NBL, but
okay.
yeah, there's only a couple guys that could really do it correctly, so they didn't really trip on too much because those dudes, like especially in the pros, those dudes just beat you out of the gate and slingshot or not. They were all horsepower and they just
Right.
over you. You'd probably be out like a couple pedals, but they'd catch up to you and that'd be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
those supercross tracks are really wild though. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
when we were in LA, we went to the one down there and just looking at that first gap,
Mm-hmm.
I mean that first double is insane.
Yeah. And the girls have to jump it too. That's what's more insane about it. The girls right now, like I can't even explain it. I'm like, man, girls never rode like that until like now. But it's
Yeah.
good. I'm glad they do because that's a good representation for the sport and for women in the sport, especially because it's like, can't say ride like a girl no more.
Yeah, unless you're a badass,
Yeah,
right?
top dude.
You
Yeah.
mentioned, and I'm sorry if I don't know this, but you said it was kind of the Olympics. You took some time off, and then it makes the Olympics. Was it the Olympics that brought you back? And did you try to
No,
make the Olympic team, or did you make the Olympic?
well, the thing was, I was like trying to like get into like race cars because I mean I love racing. So at the time I got bored with BMX, I was trying to get into race cars. And I was going to school for automotive, and then when that was done, that's when I was like, oh man, okay, I'm not going to be able to get a job no more because at the time when I came out, it was the worst time. Like we went into like the recession. So
Mhm.
guys that were like top level at the field I'm coming out of are getting laid off, and then here's me coming out of school with this like $20,000 debt. Like, so when do I start? And they're like, "Hi, buddy." And then I was like, well, let me go back to working in the bike industry for a minute and see, I know that. And I went there, and then the rest is history. I ended up going to the track one time and look up. I was all like, wow, the Olympics that's crazy. BMX is in the Olympics. I
Right.
wasn't, they announced it. So when
Yeah.
I came back, it was there. And I'm like, whoa. And then to see it on TV, I was like, wow, we made it. And I'm glad I lived to see it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild watching it, watching the Olympics or even just anybody on those tracks. It's such a different sport than when I did it.
It-
It's like you said, it's all horsepower and I mean, just the style of bike, the style of rider, like the steez or whatever the style, how
Yeah, yeah,
in my day, you know, the style was just completely different. Like going over a jump and you would never put your front end low going
no,
over a jump. Now everybody's like endoing in the air, and that's like it's cool, but that was never a consideration back in my era. Like you never did stuff like that. So it is really interesting to see how the sports evolved, and then when I look at the bikes, it's so crazy. These bikes, they just seem like they're really long. They got a really steep head angle, is what it seems like. The seats slammed all the way down,
yeah.
and the bikes are just wild. That how like on a pro, like a typical pro bike, what kind of measurements like on a top tube? What's like a do you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, so I deal with this all the time because we also Howard Cato also, he also runs Babs Bikes. That's what I ride for now.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so we're in the bicycle business now too, and I'm also helping with that. Um, Typical like for me, I run like a 21.75 top tube.
Okay.
A lot of guys like them longer than that, but
Yeah.
that's just riding style, and it all depends on the rider. Because I've seen some guys that are like bigger than me running a shorter frame. I'm like, what the hell? But I'm like, you know what? That's what's working for you. You
Right.
know,
I don't know how you guys fit on those bikes. I can't even make it around the block on my son's bike, and I don't know how you guys do that. So
yeah. I tell people it's an acquired taste. Like when I was back at the shop, I used to say that to the a lot of the older guys when they get back in and they wanted to spend all this money. I'm like, well, slow down, dude. This ain't the
Yeah.
sport. Remember, it's still is, but it isn't. There's a few things that have changed, and one of them is this thing you're about to spend like almost $4,000 on. I was like, I don't know if you
wait,
want
wait,
to.
wait, wait. A good BMX bike is going to cost you what?
It can run you up to $4,000. It's the same thing like a mountain bike, right? I don't think we're just missing is the gears. So it's just we use the same stuff y'all do, right? With the carbon rims and tie spokes, high
Yeah.
end.
Chris King, Hubs, I mean, yeah.
Even there's guys in the World Cup series that do tubeless,
Uh-huh.
but it's just you gotta remember the bike's only on the track for like what a minute of 30 seconds,
Yeah.
45. So it's not like they're riding that same bike all the time. The pros, they got practice bikes and all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sounding like my father, but I think my son's was like $160, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, well, your son's bike looks like a BMX bike, Dave. It's
Yeah,
not a BMX bike. I hate to break it to you.
I think it was a red line. I think it was a red line.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Uh-huh.
not so.
Uh,
Hey,
well,
but go ahead, Mike. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead, Dave. Do it.
No, see now he's going to be mad. We're not going to be talking anymore, and no, but I just there's so many things like I just don't want to gloss over with the women back in the sport. Was it
Yeah, yeah.
did it get into the Olympics because it was so popular? Like yeah, so much of these sports go through their ebbs and flows, right?
Right.
So did it get it was popular, so it became an Olympic sport, or it became an Olympic sport and suddenly women are into it and there's a growth in it. Like,
There was
how many people show up on a Saturday?
Oh wow, like yeah, like on just a regular local event.
Yeah.
Now it'll be like you can have like say like 30 races, and those are your heats, you know what I mean? And
Wow.
yeah, there's quite a few hundred at those World Cup events and stuff. Those are big. Nationals are
Right.
even bigger. It's like an all day thing. You're there all day into
Yeah.
the night sometimes, depending on the race and where you're at, you know.
And and did the Olympics boost those numbers? Is
Oh,
it
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Because people saw it on TV that I think that were from our generation. Um, they were like, I used to do that. And then
right.
next thing you
Right.
know, next person they see is me at the bike shop. I used to race BMX. I want to try that again. Like, they made them either want to race again or ride the BMX bike again. But just seeing that again, it was just like for them, I guess it was like um seeing it in the magazine for the first time when you were a kid, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I remember, speaking of girls, I mean, I raced this guy Kent Elliott and
Oh yeah,
his
okay.
sister. Yeah.
Fast Sons. Yeah, I know him. Kent Elliott. They're up in Roseville.
Yeah, and his sister was like, she was
Gary Elliott.
super legend. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Sherry would race the boys because sometimes there wouldn't be enough girls and she would beat most of
Mhm.
the boys. I mean, she was a really strong rider. And
Oh yeah, I've
yeah,
heard the story.
yeah, but she was kind of all alone, you know. I mean, there was another gal, I can't remember her name, out of LA that was pretty good. And then after Sherry's time, there was another one. You know, I'm butchering this terribly, but I just remember being so impressed with Sherry, and I used to joke with Ken. I'm like, man, she's faster than you are, bro. Trying to get his head.
Oh, yeah.
But is that still the case though? Because like it's interesting you said that there's so many women now, but in some road races and crits, a lot of women will jump in with men because there just aren't enough women in fields, or they'll combine
That,
them.
that might happen at some amateur events locally, like in certain tracks where they don't get a high rider count every once in a while. I've heard stories of that stuff happening back east still, and I kind of, you know what I mean, but it's very rare. Definitely not in the pros or in the older women's, you know, like say like 17 to 20 or 21, 25 women. They usually will have enough women to race their own
Yet
class.
all getting into it, eh? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot different, you know.
It's the same format that you guys run in mountain bikes and road bikes, believe it or not, because UCI is involved. So everything's more structured. So when you do the UCI events, everything's just more structured.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
more professional level.
Are
Yeah.
they testing you like they do the yeah,
The
how's that go?
UCI for the pros they do. I know the amateur events not so much.
Hmm.
The money involved. Only money involved is your money. So like, you know, at that level they don't care. But in pros, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, guys getting like right after their lap, the UCI officials are waiting for them at the finish line, and they'll take their bike and they take the rider and they separate the two, go into one trailer, check the bike for any kind of motors that might be hidden in there, and then check the rider for any, you know, other things that shouldn't be there. So
And what's the frequency of that happening?
I've seen some riders, and I mean, depending on like certain countries, they'll post that stuff. There's been riders who've been caught and been banned for like a year or so, 2 years, 1 to 2 years. I've seen.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah, it's serious stuff. It's like I said, when UCI got involved, I'm like, well, at least now that we can see they're drug testing the pros, and that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, don't do drugs, kids. That's
yeah,
not a good idea. Yeah,
yeah,
especially when you work so hard to get your skills and get your fitness and everything to a level where you can be at that level of competitiveness, you know, and then just to introduce something into your system that could derail the whole thing, you know.
right, right, exactly. And it's just like the amount of training you have to do. It's like anybody taking drugs to race you. That's just silly.
Yeah, so that would lead me for those of us that aren't doping, like what does it take for you to stay in competitive shape? Yeah, I know you said that you go down to your club and you do some, but it's not like racing. So what do you have to do to stay in shape to be competitive?
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I mean, it's like you got to really be focused and dedicated, you know, for to compete at like a national level. And Howard really introduced this to me, and he kind of like it's always been burned in my head. Is like you need 6 weeks of full training, and then that's not just on the bike. That's a lot of off the bike training, what you're doing with a lot of the exercises. And when you get done with the training session after each day, you shouldn't have anything left. When you
Yeah.
do that 6 weeks, you know, and then of course you have your recovery week or whatnot to get back to normal, your muscles will be functioning like at a high rate. But it's just a lot of dedication and focus, and it's really hard to do. It's really
Hmm.
hard to do. Exercises aren't hard to do. It's just like as I got older, I noticed making that time in my day. Like, oh God, I just got off work. I'm doing this for another hour.
Yeah.
Like, climbing this hill or doing these lunges or jump squats and whatnot. And, and it's really intense. So it's crazy because like the race is only 45 seconds, right? But it's like when you show up at a big race, I'm like, okay, I got practice and that's going to be for probably about a good 15, 20 minutes. And then I got 2 chances to make it out to the next thing. They're called motos. Some people call them heats or whatnot. It used to be 3 back in the day, but now they're like the population of BMX racing so big, they had to scoot it down to two shots, basically. So I always call it the first moto and the LCQ, last chance fire.
All that for 45 seconds?
Yeah. So
that's like bad sex.
Yeah. And then and a lot of it, 90% of it is mental. It is a mental game. It really is. Because even if you could be trained up and have everything dialed, and then you get there and you could, the moment could take you in. I've been at races where that's happened before, and you just you can't control it. You're just like, I don't know what the fuck's happening. Like, I was riding so good, like Wednesday, what happened? Where's that guy? So it's and that was one thing is I struggled with through the years, but I try to tone it down now. That's one of the reasons why I kind of backed off of racing so many races, especially with nationals, because they're just so intense,
Yeah. I mean, I always feel like it's interesting.
Hold on. Hey Matt, they were shitting on your BMX bike. So what brand did you have?
Oh, I had a dyno.
Oh, it's a dyno.
Dyno.
They're dyno. Yep, that's from GT.
That was 20-something years ago.
I'm just saying they were shitting on it. So okay,
it was prime time back then.
All right. Yeah. All right.
That's legit, right? I mean,
yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah, $160, Dave.
Yeah.
Come on.
Bike would probably be
for dirt racing. It wasn't for.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Sorry about that, but I digress. So.
Yeah. So I even forget where I was going. I had something there.
Well, we were talking about what it takes to stay competitive, and he was on the mental aspect of it.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say. So that's something that's really a lot different about what Dave and I do with road and gravel or whatever. Mental definitely plays a role in it, but it's not so dependent on a good start, right? So the start's important on some level, but with BMX, if your head's not in it right when that gate drops, man,
45 seconds.
You got no chance. You can't catch up.
No margin for error, right?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's real tough. I tell parents that are getting into the sport, I said, stay novice and intermediate as long as you can to let them enjoy it. If he starts racking up wins, locally, you might want to slow him down, because when you get into expert, the fun is over. The fun is completely over. Everything that you used to love about the sport is gone. On one hand, you're gonna be glad you made it, but as soon as you get in that first race, it's just like you really just went back to zero. And that's real hard for a lot of kids to overcome at times. So we try to help with that too, with the summer camps. So,
and was there when I was younger, it was always kind of like a NorCal, SoCal kind of thing happening, and they raced a lot more down in SoCal than they did up here, and the competition was better. I remember I went to Lake Elsinore one time, and I think I was 16X, and they had 6 gates of 16X.
Yeah, six groups. That's crazy.
Yeah, and out here at Fremont or in Livermore, I'd be lucky to get 1 gate of 16X, or maybe sometimes 2 gates if it was a double
point.
What does 2
gates mean? Is that 2 fields?
There's 8 people on a gate, so sometimes when I'm racing 16X back in the day, there'd only be 8 of us in 16X.
Okay,
but then I'd go to LA and there'd be 6 gates of 8. 48 people.
Okay, that's what
It's in that class. Actually, that's insane. Yeah, that's pretty good these days. Even in 17 to 20 X's right now, it's the same thing. I get high rider counts, big time.
And it's so hard because they're running at the time Lake Elsinore. I think they're running 3 nights a week, and then they had races on the weekend. So these these people that live down there, you know, they're just getting a lot of heavy competition where, you know, I mean, this, you know, I could race locally and win, you know, and then I'd go to Lake Elsinore and I'd be lucky to get out of the gate, out of the group of 8 into the semis or whatever, you know.
That,
Yeah.
yeah. My boss that I work with, he raced out. He raced actually before I did. Yeah, he used to tell me about those stories, how crazy it was in the '80s, especially with like he was like, one person making out of each moto.
Right.
You
Yeah.
were back then, if you made your main and you didn't have a factory ride, you for sure were getting a phone call on Monday. You made, and he's all, that's how hard it was. I was like, wow, man. And I see those pictures of like, like Mike King and all them racing in the amateur days, riding for Diamondback and all that stuff. And I'm like, wow, that must have been insane. You
Yeah.
know, having that, like, just like one guy makes it out and the next ride another guy, and you got 3 chances, but like, every time you looked up, it's just a full factory field. And that's kind of how it was in the '90s when I was racing, back when I was younger. And that's when I was like, man, as soon as I turn expert, it's gonna be great.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, I always felt like anytime the SoCals would come to NorCal, you know, it was like, man, I don't care what it takes. I gotta win. I gotta beat,
oh
you know what I mean? They're on our turf because I got owned when I went to LA, you
yeah,
know, so I wanted to treat them the same, you know, but sometimes easier said than done. But yeah, it's interesting to see how the sports evolve. So what kind of gearing do you run on one of these supercross tracks?
I've never gone down even the hill on one of those before,
Oh,
but
okay. Yep.
yeah, each rider is different. Even like for me, I change gears for depending on the track. I'll run a smaller setup on the indoor track than I would on an outdoor, because out
Okay.
more wide open and they're way longer. And those are kind of like the races I like to train for, more or less. Indoor tracks are more tricky, and that's actually where I actually had my accident at. And I was just like, man, I can never get it right on indoor tracks. I don't know what it is. I think it's because we call them cookie cutter tracks, because they build the track that Tuesday or Wednesday, and then everyone shows up for the national on Friday, and it's just some track that's only been put together for the last 2 3 days, and it doesn't have any like characteristic flow to it. So I don't know, those kind of tracks are on a smaller gear, because you're not going to be jumping anything really, because the
Hmm.
dirt feel like it has that flow to it, if you will.
What's
Yeah.
the smaller gear though, front, back? What do you?
A lot of guys run like a 16 tooth in the back, with like a 44 is about the lowest some guys will do. And then for me, it would be like a 45, because I like a little bit more torque, just a little bit more torque, especially when
Okay.
because
Yeah,
the
we've
thing, have the gear too small and the track's long, you're gonna what we call wind out. You're gonna be spun
Right.
out, no torque, and then everyone's just gonna go. Foop, 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 foop.
all
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, there was
So,
a whole thing with like the crank links and the gearing and everything. I remember like, you know, I was just like 13, 14 years old and everybody's like running these 180s. And
yeah.
we got this sponsorship from so there was a local bike shop in Livermore. It was called Odyssey BMX. Not like I know there's Odyssey BMX, it's
Yeah.
still a thing, but this is
Mhm.
not what that was. This is just a small bike shop in Livermore, but he was buying profile frames from Profile in Florida, and then they were branded Odyssey. Do you remember? Do you recall anything like this, or do you know about that?
Um. Yeah. See, that was right before me. I remember. Yeah, Profile was making frames when I came in the sport, but I think they were done, and then they came back like 4 or 5 years later with the frame. But yeah, that was right before me. That was probably, I might have been like 12 or 13 when that happened, maybe in like late '80s.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing was the profile frames had this extra bar and went from the seat tube to the down tube. That on the Odyssey bikes, it was basically I believe it was the same. It just didn't have that bar. So,
Okay.
but anyway, he had a factory team. There was Odyssey Factory, and then there was Odyssey coat factory team. And so when they gave you your stuff, it all came from Profile, but it had Odyssey stickers on it and whatnot. But I remember I got these cranks and they were supposed to be 180s and they were actually 170s.
Oof.
Yeah. And so I but I, I'm only 13 and I'm not very tall. So anyway, they tried to get them replaced to 180s. I really wanted 180s because everybody's running 180s, but I ran 170s with a 45-17.
Oof, that
And
was crazy.
yeah, but it worked out, It,
Yeah.
it worked out. And so
So,
Except when you went to SoCal.
yeah, yeah, that didn't work out on any level. But part of like what you were saying, Mark, because I drove there, I got this expense, and I'm in this environment where it was maybe me and one of my friends, or sometimes I'd go by myself even, towards the end, like nobody else was racing even now up here that was local. So I would just drive to and and then you get up on that gate and it's just you against all these locals and it's like sometimes your head just like sabotages you.
yeah, yeah, it does. It's pretty it's pretty insane. It's intense. I always tell people, I'm like, everyone's got something to say to get on that gate.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
drop, bullshit stops. That's how I was always used to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's one of the things like with what Dave and I do. It's nice because if you put the work in, back to like the start not being, it's important, but not as important. And then towards the end, you get to this space where uh, you can draw on a lot of confidence based on the amount of work that you put in. And
Mm-hmm.
so it gets down to the end and that you're hurting and everyone else is hurting too. And so
Right.
that then you have like this mental edge. If you put the work in, you just think like, well, it's time to go. I've done the work. It's not so predicated on this snap reaction.
Right.
Um, Although I guess sometimes a sprint could be on a snap reaction, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
you've had 60 miles or 3 hours to think about it. These
that's
guys
right.
got 45 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
Yeah. It's wild.
Uh,
Yeah.
What, Mark, what age do these like, what's the youngest categories that you're finding these people, and then you obviously there's older categories, but what's the youngest?
I think 3 years old. I wish I would have started
What?
younger, but like I got started when I was 14. I found the sport when I was 13, actually, but I didn't start racing it officially till I was 14. But when I did start racing, I was racing guys against guys who had been racing since they were like 7 or 8, which I was
Right.
like, that's crazy. And then, but yeah, some of them was like 3 years old. But now that in they have the Strider bike races, you know,
Yeah.
in it now. So now they just basically groom them from there. You know,
Mhm.
start paddling along with your feet, and then next thing you know, I think he's ready for a bike. Okay, and then off we go. And you're racing like 5 and under novice is what it's called, and they're all the 5 and under novice is the same speed as intermediate, and I think kind of expert, believe it or not, because like you're not going that much faster at 5 years old. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens is they get better bikes, right?
Yeah,
The novice kids a lot of times are on their big brother's bike or whatever, or they're on a bike that's not right. And then by the time they're expert, now if the whole family's involved, he's got the little lighter weight little kid's
yeah.
bike.
Call the parents factory dads.
Yes. Yeah, my dad was one of those guys back in
Yeah,
the day with my younger brother.
yeah, they're
We
pretty intense, pretty cool, but it's like, man, okay.
they're about it. Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah, so are so many parents. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. So how did you find it, Mark? You said
Uh,
you didn't get it till 13.
yeah. So originally, back when I was younger, I mean, I loved riding my bike always, obviously, but I originally wanted to fly planes. That was like my whole thing. I wanted to fly planes for the military. I wanted to join the Navy or the Marines, and fly. And but I always wanted to but I was like riding my bike and I loved racing. And there used to be these jumps right across the street from my house in Fremont. and this kid, I seen him and he had a number plate on. I'm all, what? I'm like, where'd you get that? He's like, oh, I race. I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah. And then we start talking, hanging out. He's like, I have a race to come. I have a race today. You want to go? And I'm all like, yeah. And then that was it. He took me to Sonol BMX, and that was over. I never wanted to fly planes again after that. I don't care.
Uh-huh.
I know him today, and we race against each other. We still race against each other today. So
Oh, that's
I
cool.
know you've crashed, but it's probably a safer choice. So good one, Mark.
Yeah.
yeah. Everybody thought the one person, only thing, a couple people in my family knew I was going to be like riding bikes, and everyone else that I thought you were going to be a pilot. I was all like,
Yeah.
well,
But
Yeah.
it just
fascination for airplanes, but I was like, I ain't trying to go to no war. So
it just got into your blood and you loved it that much.
yeah, as soon as I got there, I was like, I don't know. I think it was just because it was like an identity thing. Because I always loved BMX and like riding my bike, but like in the neighborhood, I was like probably one of the only kids doing it. There are a lot of older kids I'd hang out with, and they were kind of done. And then I met my friend Jeremy, and after that, he took me to Sonoma. Oh, this is the world I belong in.
Yeah.
That's the track my son used to race at. It's Sonol, I think. And I said Pleasanton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
584. So, Mark, where did you grow up?
Fremont.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, right on.
Same house. My mom's still there.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. Their same house, right across from the jumps where I started. I was all like, dude, this is crazy. But yeah.
Wow.
Are the jumps still there?
No. They were right at Kennedy High School, so everything's changed over there.
Yep.
So yeah, we used to have jumps all around. Like when I started racing, there was like all these other kids that I grew up with started too. And there's a couple of them are still around, but like we used to have jumps like all over Fremont. It was crazy. I remember one time we had these one jumps over by Fremont Lumber.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was obviously Red Devil. Everybody knew that
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. Most infamous one, but wasn't the safest place to be, if you were
Right.
how old you were.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, we used to travel around. I mean, really, for me, I don't think I would have raced anywhere near as long if it wasn't for jumping. Like,
Yeah.
I just love jumping. And we would go like Red Devil. We'd go, here in Livermore, we had a place called the Creek. And yeah,
Trails.
what was that?
I think I remember that one, the Creek Trails.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, I spent so many summers out there just with a shovel and all my buddies, and we had so much fun out there, working our butts off, as little kids, building jumps and figuring out like, oh, that works, this doesn't work, and then there was always like some city nonsense. They'd come and plow them down, and then we'd
Yeah.
have to go build them back up again. And it's just always this thing. But man, so many good times out there. And there's just something about
Educate me though, okay? Because like again, ignorance. Jumping. I know that there's jumps in the race, but
Yeah.
jumping I kind of associate with like the X Games, right? So and I make the same thing like kids that want to join the high school mountain bike team realize that, oh, this isn't really just about going downhill and flying gaps. This is about racing. So
Yeah.
when you said jumping, if it wasn't for jumping, you wouldn't be racing, but it seems like there's a disconnect there. How does one translate to the other, right? Like how do you get this love of catching air into suffering for 45 seconds?
Well, I think like for like most of us, like when we start, we're just jumping, right? We're going to these jumps, just hanging out, jumping, like, whoa, check this out, whoa, and then you get to the track, and it's sort of that for a minute until you get in that first race, and
Right.
then I kind of find out like what kind of like rider you are. Are you a rider or are you a racer?
Mm-hmm.
I,
Okay.
I've always loved racing. Like I used to watch on TV, and I follow motocross, and I always have followed motocross the same way people follow football and basketball and stuff. So I was like, you can talk to me about basketball and football a little bit, but I'm pretty knowledgeable. But you talk about moto and all that and F1, I could talk for days. I can go on for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. 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 You know, like I feel like the two really play off each other really well. Like if you can jump your bike, then you're going to be at a much better, I feel like you're going to be at a much better advantage when you go to the races. Because a lot of times the races, a lot of tracks are pretty predictable. But, you know, when you're traveling and you don't know, like the first time I went to Lake Elsinore, you know, there was a pretty committed step down. And it was just like, you know, if I didn't have the history of, you know, jumping or whatever, and when you're jumping, you're just jumping for style to see if you can do a tabletop or whatever the thing is now. But you're just honing your skills and just getting really good on the bike. And then when you encounter something on the track or a track where maybe others are not all that comfortable, it's an edge, you know, it's something that really helps you. But
Yeah.
Is the step down the start? That's the drop in, what's the step
no,
down?
step downs were like
You jump to
the
take like a step down, kind of like this, man. Yeah. Like, flight of stairs and except going reverse. The best I could.
yeah. It's like yeah, like there's a lip at the top of the stairs, and then the landing's at the bottom of the stairs. So you gotta,
Okay.
you know, and the gap is, you know, pretty good size or whatever, you know. But sometimes you go to tracks and you encounter, like I remember we raced out in Stockton on 8 Mile Road, and there was like they had a spine. It was like a dirt spine
Holy.
in the middle of the track, and
um,
it was insane. And so just learning how to deal with that. And you're
yeah.
trying to go as fast as you can. You got this thing. And generally, like if like a spine is like, if you imagine like two quarter pipes backed up to each other,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that. And so when you hit one, like you see them in the X Games or whatever, they go almost straight up and then straight down. Well, that's not how it works when you're racing. You're going as fast as you can,
Yeah.
and then you got this wall that you got to deal with. And you can't if you go if you hit it fast, you're gonna fly and land flat and maybe crash. Who knows? But
Yeah.
yeah, but and sometimes you know different tracks have different challenges. What speaking of that, so Mark, has there ever been like what would you say is the most challenging track that you've encountered?
Oh, that's a tough one. Um, I would say this last one in Oregon, but I mean that really wasn't that hard. It was just that there was just one spot where I wasn't really I wasn't dialed. But yeah, I have to just trying to remember. There was like Santa Clara Pal back in when I started racing, probably in my second or third year when we were still over at Agnew's Hospital, because that was the original track,
Hmm.
right? Or was it 237? It was behind Agnew. Santa Clara Pal used to have like, and they were copying Lemoore because Lemoore was very famous for these big doubles, like the doubles you see on those supercross tracks now. Just picture that in like 91, 92. Like no one would ever seen doubles that big, especially not down the first straight. And you
Yeah.
got a couple pros jumping them and the other pros trying to figure out how to get over them. When they had that at my local track, I was like, whoa, you're coming
Yeah.
down the street and you're gonna hit this. I'm like, okay. And then you come up to you'd see guys just grab and break. Like they'd be horsing down the first straight. Oh, I got it. Not really. And you see, so that was probably one of the one times where I was like, oh man, but I was still in my intermediate phase in my journey, if you will. I
Hmm.
mean, but to see expert guys getting grab and break, that I knew that was hard. I only saw a couple top guys sending it, dudes that were like, all in the magazines and stuff. So I was all like, rightfully so. But then you see other guys that I considered pretty good, but that weren't on that magazine level. They'd just be all like, I'm cool. But they got over it pretty smooth. So that was kind of like probably one of the biggest ones. And then, yeah, that was the most like I'd ever been like kind of worried on a BMX bike, I would say,
Yeah.
on a track wise, at least. All the tracks, they're always fun. I love racing, coming out of the gate stuff, but some of the tracks are just like, I just feel, I'm like, it has no flow, no rhythm to it. It just, and that's the indoor tracks, the ones that they, like I said, they build like 3 days before. There's not the challenge. The jumps aren't the challenge. It's just getting around the track and trying to like feel the track out. And you can just feel the softness of the dirt where it's not, so solid in this one spot, or there might be like a little bit of a bump in the lip, or the landing doesn't feel, the same. So that's all. But yeah, that only track that's ever really scared me was when Santa Clara is back, and I think 91, 92.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What so let's talk about this the coaching and working with the kids. I saw a post you had recently where somebody made you a little card when you got hurt. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. So what does is can you tell us how somebody gets involved with this, and then what age range it is and when it happens and all that?
Well, it's for all ages, for pretty much. With they know about it through either Howard or if they follow Howard on Instagram, or if they
Mhm.
come to the track and they're new to the track, and Howard talks to them, because they'll have posters and stuff and flyers up. Oh, we're doing summer camp, and a lot of them will spread the word to their friends, like, oh, we're going to do this BMX.
This is at Santa Clara.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, they basically just tell their friends, and the next thing you know, we got like 30 riders, and they're all new to the sport. Some of them already are participating as a sport as novices, and they want to up their game a little bit. So
Yeah, and is this something that they pay for, or is this a
yeah.
free? Okay, right.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And how many days a week is it running, or is it just on the weekends or?
He did it, so it does it for like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks straight. So it's like Monday through Friday. We drive down to Santa Clara, set up the tent. The campers come in, and they all sign in. They get a jersey and stuff, and their little goodie
Hmm.
bag. If they don't have a bike, we've got extra bikes for them, and then camp begins. But it's a real BMX. It's a real sports athletic camp. It's not like I don't know, called daycare.
Yeah, right.
So
No,
you're
that
working. I mean, they're practicing skills. They're working hard the whole time they're there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We wear them out pretty good.
yeah. Yeah. Do you do I didn't ask you, but uh do you focus on nutrition as a BMX pro, or what, at least when you were racing at that level, and then also now as a amateur, or is that a big part of your program, or is it more like?
All it's everything like that that came from mountain bikes and road bikes is just basically got injected into us, like everything.
Hmm.
It's I'm like, this sport just became like athlete. It's just athletic. It's like, I'm like, man, the days of the BMX funds, I was like glad I raced when I did, when I was younger, because I had a chance to see like BMX at its fun time, if you will. Because now you look in the amateur classes, every parent has their kids' eyes and focused on those Olympic rings. I mean, and
Yeah.
rightfully, but I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. But now, yeah, it's crazy athletic now. Everyone's all nutrition and training the same way, and everyone's doing, there's no more secrets, no more. So,
Did that sort of ruin it, or is it just, or you're just happy because it's moving it forward?
I'm glad on both accounts. Actually, it kind of ruined it a little bit, but not really. At the same token, BMX is always going to be fun. It just depends on now. It's just dissected, which is a good thing. Is it's like, well, you want to ride, you want to race, or you want to race at national level or this level. So yeah, I like it, honestly, because it just gives people more insight. Because now they don't see we're just some guys riding kids' bikes, if
Yeah.
you that's what I think people get the wrong idea. They think it's like just racing kids' bikes on the. Like, no, it's more than that. More than we think. Our wheels are just smaller. Same thing, just
Yeah.
smaller.
So
Well,
30 kids show up for your camp. How many of them how many are women, and then how many of them stick? Like how many will be back next year or go on and start racing? And how many are just like, "Oh, that was fun. Now let me try golf."
Uh, yeah, there's probably about like would be like about 6 or 7 girls show up.
mhm.
They're extremely young, and then like as far as like, them going on to, a lot of them continue on with the sport. Like that kid who rode maybe that card, Gabriel, he's from the camp. We groomed him from the ground up. Like he didn't know about the sport.
Wow.
Groomed him from the ground up. And, that was all of Howard's training, and the tutelage and stuff. So they groomed him from the ground up. And there's a few other kids that we did that we worked with from the ground up where they didn't know nothing about racing, and now they're racing and winning, state and local wise. And that kid, Gabriel, actually, he won the Race of Champions at the Grands.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah. So I was like, man, you run that #1 plate. I'm like, you better not get burned out before
I. Yeah, that's always a risk when they're young like that.
How old's Gabriel?
Yeah, he's like 7.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's, when I was a kid, the nutrition side of it was, I don't know if you remember the guy, Greg Romero. He's like, big time pro, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And he was famous for his NorCal sauce.
Yeah.
And he would mix up this thing in a blender, and it would be like, yeah, you got to get on that sauce, man. I got the NorCal sauce. And it'd be just like, man, I got to get me some of that NorCal sauce. But I had no idea what it was.
Well, what was it?
I don't know.
Who knows? Those guys, they were all fit. They were just that they always just played on words, and I think they used that to like psych their competition out.
Yeah, for sure.
Always words, little secret words they would use, and be like, they always had people like coming up to us because like, oh, you're from NorCal. What does this mean? I'm all like, what? Like,
yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of fun back in the day, that's for sure. But, the seriousness of it, it wasn't anything like it is today, and I think, like, to your point, the Olympics really changed that whole thing because, there was like a lot of weed, there was a lot of, beer, like you go to the jumps and, the half the guys building the jumps were just like drinking and smoking. And, it was just a different thing altogether. I didn't really, that wasn't really my scene at all, even though I was really into building jumps. But I didn't take nutrition serious at all,
I think that was a different time. You were A, too young, and B, like the whole nutrition thing is a relatively new phenomenon.
It is.
I mean, people have had their theories and their secret sauces, and then it's not until it became science, just not that long ago that I think was when people got serious about it, or it had an impact, I should say.
Yeah.
Right.
So, hey, I don't know, you can say this or not, because I don't want to talk anyone out of not joining this, but I got to tell you, it sounds like an expensive sport, like $4,000 to get in.
Oh.
On a bike. Maybe you don't spend that, right? But a few bucks to get a really good bike, and then you're traveling all over the place, and you're going I couldn't wait for my daughter to drop out of soccer because I couldn't afford to go to like Culver City one more time for a tournament, right? And it sounds like it's a big time and money commitment.
It is if you try to race at that level. Yeah, you don't have to, and that's one thing I try to tell people. I'm like, don't go fully all in like that, until you get some years under your belt in this game, because it could wear you out real quick and the bike will be for sale the next year.
Yeah. Crawl, walk, run.
Be burned out. It's really hard going to all those races. That's why, we do states, and I do state races and a few nationals here and there just to avoid that. Because one year I did travel a lot back, I think, but during the pandemic, after the Hank and Frank, I was like, well, what are we gonna do? And Howard's all, let's go on the road. I'm like, fine with me, let's go. Next thing you know, we're Ohio, Maryland, and South Carolina, and it was just, by the end of the year, I was smoked, I was cooked. I'm over it. And we still had the Grands, which is the last year, and I was just like, oh, so over it. I was like, I'm over these airports. I'm over the airports. I'm over all of it. So
it's so much traveling with your bike, especially flying and everything. And then the whole rental car situation. I mean, it's just hard. It's so hard
the best thing I've ever summed it up as it's just all you're doing is waiting the whole weekend. You're waiting TSA, then you're waiting in the lobby, and you're waiting to get on the plane. You get on the plane, you're waiting to take off. It's just all this waiting, and then it's like just for this moment to get to the track, and they're like, "What time's practice?" All right, practice is enough for another couple hours. Here we are back to waiting again.
Waiting, yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
times, and you just like, you just get this look on your face like,
Man, I worked a lot of years with Perry Kramer, and yeah, he's famous for the PK Ripper and
Ripper.
being one of the all-time greats, Hall of Famer. And Perry has some amazing stories from the early days of BMX and in the early years, so SE Racing was the name of the company that
Mm.
that Perry was associated with. He's sponsored by, and the guy Scott, it stood for Scott Enterprises, right? Scott Breithaupt was the
Yeah.
owner and founder of the thing. But he bought a school bus, and then their colors were baby blue and orange, and he painted the school bus with a brush baby blue and then put these orange wings on it, and then he drove around. And there are so many just crazy bus breaking down stories in the middle of nowhere. And
Oh,
I
bad.
mean, yeah. So for you flying around airport to airport, not quite as bad as rolling through Texas at 115 degrees in a school bus with no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that would, yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
make a living doing it? Like, do the top guys make a living doing
Oh, yeah.
this?
Yeah, they do. They do. But
Yeah.
their careers are like, it's like it's the same thing like, regular any extreme sport. By the time you reach a certain age, you're going to get aged out eventually, and you're not going to be on top anymore.
Right.
And if you stay too long, then you're not going to be making mains anymore. Then your name's really going to be kind of like, dude, it's
Right.
over.
There's all those groups of 17 to 23, so just looking to take it,
Yep.
and they're
Yeah.
just young and hungry and,
Mhm.
and
Don't care,
yeah,
at the speed, but as far as they're concerned, they're like, oh, I can do anything. And then, they race the pros. And you're like, oh man, you could tell. You could just
right.
tell.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
mhm.
you see it with the young bucks in our genres too. And a lot of times they'll make moves where, you wouldn't make, because they're young and inexperienced and
Brain's not fully developed.
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's
It
not.
is, I guess,
At that age,
25.
is not fully developed. They feel they're indestructible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's how back. I remember that's exactly how I was by the time I was, up till about like 27.
Yep.
Whoa, it's starting to hurt.
Yeah. Reality starts to set in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting you mentioned that, backtracking a little bit, that your people come to realize that they're athletes, that they're not just men on grown bikes, that you guys are actually athletes.
Yep.
And I was recently, no, well, last Sea Otter, I was helping a friend at the USA Cycling booth, and I've mentioned this on the pod before. And
Mm-hmm.
that was their track team. It was their sprint track team. They were trying to recruit people for that. And the three types of people they were looking for: BMXers, rowers, and cross country skiers.
Okay.
And it was just the amount of power that they could put out in a short period of time. And the big thing was BMXers. They were like, you ride BMX here, come on over here, sign this paper, here's our brochure for our camp, right? If you found out that you race BMXs, it was how much power can you put out for this short period of time? And again, speaks to these guys are athletes, right? They're being recruited by USA Cycling. So
Yeah, and it's a particular type of power, right? I mean, it's so different than most cyclists.
Mm-hmm.
Most cyclists are in, the races are long. It's a battle of attrition and endurance. And then, hopefully you got a little explosion at the end if you need it. But for track racing, It's not really a battle of attrition as much as it is just the ability to just throw down, you know,
Yeah,
and really
tracks,
sprint.
that's another level. That's just, yeah. I wish
Well, it is, but that's the you know, the training that comes from the BMX and that short burst is, you know, that they'll build on that, but it was amazing that
right.
that's what they were looking for. You know,
The sprinter mentality, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. Have you ever tried getting down to Hellier track and you know, ripping apart one of these drop bar bikes?
So first time I ever tried a velodrome bike was in Indianapolis, Indiana, when I was like about 18. I was living out there, and it was at the Major Taylor Velodrome.
Oh,
And it was,
oh,
cool.
yeah.
yeah, it was right next to my to the BMX track, my local BMX track, and they let me do like a few laps around. And I thought, I was like, oh, this is not bad. The gear felt kind of heavy, and I started to get going, and I passed this guy up, I remember, and I was like, man, I'm okay. I got this. And then the same guy, like before I was done with the lap, passed me, and then before I could finish the next lap, he double passed me again. And I was like, I'm not a sprinter like that. And I was like, okay, way different.
Wow,
Yeah.
But it was
that's
pretty
great.
crazy though. Like, you know, to ride a fixed gear bike. That was the first time doing that, and I was like, whoa, this is nuts. You
Yeah.
know, strength you got to have. And I remember my knees were just like kind of like, whew, so it was kind of heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy. Yeah, we had a guy, Larry Nolan, a local legend guy. I mean, but he helps out at the Hellier track, and he's trying to get Dave and I to come out there and go play around on a track.
Different mindset. It's different. It's just
Uh-huh.
different.
It'd be fun though to do a road
Yeah.
trip like that, maybe, you
Yeah.
know, just yeah. But all
So
right,
how
man.
long can you keep doing this, Mark?
Yeah, good
uh,
question.
the goal originally is like 60, but like it's crazy because like the highest class they have is 56 and over for the 20-inch guys, and then like cruiser guys, it's like 20. Those are the 24-inch bikes, right? Those guys are like, I think it's like 60 and over. But I've always said, like, I want to be done racing when I'm 60. I still want to keep riding, but I'm like, man, I'll be 50 in 2 years, so we'll see where I'm at with that. You know, like I said, this is the first time dealing with an injury now. Now it's giving me time to like think, which I'm like not really like accustomed to during the
Yeah.
summer. You know, I'm just glad to be riding my bike again right now. So I was like, maybe back off the racing a little bit so you can continue to ride. You know.
Mhm.
It's amazing that you've been doing it for that long and you still have a passion for it and that you're still looking in and now you're looking in a crystal ball saying, yeah, another 10 to 10, 12 years. That's amazing. It's
Yeah,
got to
because
be quite a sport.
nationals and you see all these legends, like, you know, you probably know these guys, Mike, like Eric Roop and
Oh
Turnell,
yeah.
and yet they're still around.
Yeah.
They're still around racing 20-inch. So I'm like, dude, you guys, like, dude, every time I like think I'm like, okay, I'll be done here, I run into you guys and you guys move the goalpost.
Right.
So then you know, I see them and I'm all like, okay, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
So, you know, as long as I keep on wanting to ride the bike, I think that's, you know, I
That's
hope
it.
that's is the goal. That if I make it 60, I'm like, okay, mission accomplished. But who knows?
well, I'll tell you what, just making it to 48 is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And what it's done for you physically and mentally and everything throughout your life, I mean, it's just been a great asset, you know. You look
Yeah,
at, you know, I know I always get around, you know, you go to parties or whatever, and you know, you see some people from your past, and you know, it's just, you know, time catches up with you unless you make sure it doesn't, you know,
yeah,
and the bicycle has a good way of helping us in that. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so there's no
That was
doubt. I mean,
that's
go,
funny you say that. My dad, when I got hurt and I was in the hospital, my dad came to visit me and he was all like, "Father Time is undefeated." I was like,
oh man, come on.
"Father
Come
Time's
on
undefeated."
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, you know,
All right,
injuries
man.
happen. It's part of the sport. You know,
yeah,
that's just, you know, it doesn't matter if you're 32 or 48, you know, that could have happened to anybody at any given track at any given time, you know, and
yeah. Um, one of the guys that I raced that I compete against, he's actually older than me, and he's actually 3 years older than me, and he's one of the top guys in my class. And I remember he had a really bad back injury like a few years back, dude. And I was like, man, dude, and it's just seeing him just all like casted up like this, you know, and the body cast looking. I'm sitting there like, dude, what the fuck? He's all like,
Yeah.
and he's back. But
Wow.
it's crazy just seeing that, you know, that always reminded me, like, dude, this kid, you know, like that movie Le Mans with Steve McQueen. He says, it can happen to you and it can happen again, you know. I've always kept that with me, like, okay, you know. And then luckily, you know, when my time came, I was all like, damn, dude, this is my time. Now it's my turn. All these years I was dodging the bullet. Now it's my turn. But I'm glad I went through, because it was like, you know, I wouldn't be able to talk to people about it and let them know, like, yeah, you know, it's a dangerous sport, but, you know, if you racer's mind, we're only thinking about when this is over with. That's the only thing I was thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
And thank God we have short-term memories so that we keep going back and doing it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Dave just fell what was it, a week ago?
yeah, a week ago.
Yeah, broke his helmet, got all concussed, all funky. Yeah.
And then I find myself bombing some hill on my gravel bike this morning. So I'm like, forgot all about last Saturday.
Yeah.
You gotta have a short-term memory. Otherwise, if you think about that, you'll never get back on the bike.
No.
It's that drive too, you know, that helps us. Is, you know, a lot of people get injured as they get older, and then, you know, that's it. They just get injured and they don't have a drive to come back to something that they're passionate about,
Right.
like we all do as cyclists, you know. So it's a good thing. Well, listen, Mark, thanks so much for coming on the pod and you know, sharing with us. I mean, I have a history in BMX, but it's so long ago and the sport has changed so much. And you know, and Dave doesn't know shit about BMX. So
I don't know shit about a lot of things, but
yeah.
proof positive we're lovers of everything bike. So I was so thrilled that you know, Mike got you on here. So thanks for coming.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, Mark, and best of luck with your recovery and working with those
Continued
young
success
kids.
on the track, and thanks so much for helping the youth. I mean, that's what we need, is more people to help young kids get into the sport. I don't care what discipline it is, but as long as there are more kids on bikes, I think it's great. So great stuff, Mark.
That's what Howard's main message is: flood the streets with bikes. You know.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah, good stuff. All right, well, thanks so much, Mark, and yeah, our episode will drop next Thursday. So, but I'll shoot you an email or something, let you know.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right, yep, take care, buddy.
All right.